Hey, this is Brad from MOTODEMIC. Here I'm going to show you how to install our single headlight conversion for the 2011 to 2015 Triumph Speed Triple. Let's see what parts come in the kit and what tools we need for the job. The conversion includes the gauge bracket, fork ring shims, side brackets, and hardware. For this installation, we're going to use an adaptive LED headlight with a black retainer ring and black inner bezel. This headlight is pre-wired and ready to go. For the tools, we need a 17mm and 10mm wrench, a 4, 5, 6, and 8mm hex tool. We also need a 7 and 8mm socket, ratchets to go with those, a Sharpie, a number 2 Phillips screwdriver, and a torque wrench. Okay, so before we get started, I want to mention that the handlebars do need to be removed partially for this installation. If you're not comfortable with this, we recommend taking your bike to a shop that can perform the install. If you do want to continue moving forward, we recommend having a towel to place on the front of the tank because we're going to be resting the bars right here. Let's get started with the install. All right, the first thing we need to do is remove these 4 screws holding on the fly screen using our 5mm hex tool. With those 4 screws removed, we can now remove the fly screen, giving us access to the gauge connector and headlight connection. Now we just unplug both of those and set aside. Using the 7mm socket, remove the bolt securing the instrument panel. Next, remove the instrument panel by slowly pulling it out. Using our 10mm wrench and 8mm socket, we're going to remove the 4 bolts holding the headlight. When you're pulling the bolt out, be careful not to lose the nut down into the frame. With the 4 bolts removed, we can now remove the entire headlight assembly from the bike. Okay, so now we need to remove the grommets that secure their instrument panel to the stock gauge bracket. You do this by pushing them through and sort of rolling them out like so. Okay, so now we need to put those grommets we just removed into the new gauge bracket. It's pretty much the same as removing. You just roll the rubber grommet into the hole, like so. Now it's ready to go on the bike. Next, we're going to remove the wire guide using our 10mm wrench and removing these 2 bolts. Now mark your handlebars and riser with a Sharpie to make sure you put them back in the same place during reinstallation. Now we can remove the handlebar riser caps using our 6mm hex tool. Now with the caps removed, just lift the handlebars up and rest them on the front of the tank. Now using our 17mm wrench and 8mm hex tool, we need to remove the nut on the bottom side of the triple clamp. Repeating on the other side. Now we're ready to install the gauge bracket. We do so by coming in from the front between all the wires and installing the washer between the bracket and the riser bushing, followed by the nut that we just removed. Next, we're going to tighten down the risers to 35 Newton meters, which is about 26 foot-pounds. Now you can use the handlebar to straighten either of the risers if they got turned during torquing. Now we can install the riser caps on the same side they once were by going off of our Sharpie marks on the inside of the cap. You want to make sure that your gap on the front and back side of your cap are even. Now that we're on our marks, we can tighten the riser caps down to 26 Newton meters or 19 foot-pounds. Now we need to reinstall the wire guides that we removed while removing the stock headlight. Now we're going to install the fork rings, and these can be a little tricky because you have to use the shim and the larger of the two fork rings that come on the bottom. Once you have that all together, you can just loosely install one of these bolts. Repeat that on the upper ring using the smaller of the two fork rings. Now you want to use your side bracket with the longer portion of the side bracket on the top. Align both fork rings so you can get the bolt in loosely, and you're going to just barely snug down each of these bolts with your fingers. And you're going to bring these down until there's about 45 millimeters or 1.75 inches between the top of the bottom triple clamp and the bottom of the lower fork ring, leaving all of these bolts loose for now. Next, we'll install the instrument panel by gently pressing it into each grommet, making sure that they don't get pushed out the other side. Then we'll secure it down using the same bolt we removed before with the 7mm socket. When you tighten this down, you don't need to go super tight, it's just plastic. Now we can reinstall the gauge connector, making sure the rubber boot is nice and tight around the connection. Now we're ready to install the headlight. Rubber bushing, M8 bolt, and nylon washer. We'll line them up on one side and get the thread started. And we'll repeat this on the other side. Rubber bushing, M8 bolt, nylon washer. Now we can plug in the headlight, tuck away any excess wiring back into the headlight housing. Now we'll adjust our lamp to be about level and go ahead and tighten the headlight bolts. And then work our way back by doing the headlight side brackets. And finally, we'll do the fork rings. Now that the headlight's installed, simply turn on the ignition, test your high beam, and pass function. Well, there you have it, the 2011 to 2015 Triumph Speed Triple single headlight conversion. For more information, head to motodemic.com. Be sure to like and subscribe. See you next time.